Well, anyway, the theme of this section would be sharing aspiration towards Hong Kong's future through continuity and opportunities. Well, we will focus on Hong Kong's changing business environment, Hong Kong's development of innovations and creativity, as well as our future economic development. Let me now introduce you to our honorable guests of the panel. We have, let me start with 利基集團有限公司啊，利基 Holding Company Limited, Miss Clara Chan, Vice Chairman and CEO. Also from Jie Shui Lun Jewelry International Limited, right next to me, Miss Annie Yao Jie, Chairman and CEO. Now, for entrepreneurs, we have Mr. Douglas Young. Mr. Douglas Young is the chief CEO and co-founder of God. Well, good of desire. His God, okay? And then Mr. Yetsu is a founder and CEO of company Outblaze Limited. Ladies and gentlemen, let's have a round of applause for our panelists. Okay, we have 30 minutes, okay, for the sharing, and let me begin with the ladies, okay? Now, Annie, what fundamental shift have you experienced in the way Hong Kong does business over the past 20 years?
Obviously, it's in the technology side. I think nowadays, or over the past 20 years, technology has helped us a lot, and it makes us our business decisions and everything that we rely on technology so much, like our decision making, and we want to do data analysis before we derive a conclusion, and not just by gut feeling. And we also have a lot of big data kind of thing in recent years that we want to understand how our consumer behaviors are. And so technology is something that has really changed our habit in the past 20 years. And also we need technology for work efficiency. And just like back in 2007 in my company, we started implementing a large-scale ERP system, which is a very, very difficult project for me at that time because jewelry industry is not a very standardized. Jewelry itself is not a very standardized product. It's natural and it's just vary from pieces to pieces, and it just cannot be standardized. But in achieving an ERP system, things has to be very standardized. So it's just a very challenging project for me, but we overcome and we did it, and we started using it over 10 years ago, and we are still using it, and I would say that it's a success in our company. So so technology is just something that we cannot live without nowadays. But there's another thing, talking about the shift of the way of doing business over the past 20 years. Another aspect is that nowadays, I think, especially for people in Hong Kong, that we have faced so many ups and downs in the past 20 years, that we are very cautious and very conscious about risk management. So I've seen many people start doing businesses in a partnership way instead of wholly owned business, because they don't want to take all the risk. Of course, they cannot take all the profit, but they don't want to take all the risk as well. So people are doing partnership in order to manage their risk, and I think that's a very interesting way of leading a very successful business if you don't want to bear too much risk, and it just helps you manage it.
Okay, so your business model would be strategic partnership with...
of course, not all of them, but
no,
for certain projects that we think appropriate, that we can use partnership. For example, in recent years, when we work with designers all over the world, instead of paying them by fixed fee, we just kind of like engage them by partnership. We don't want to bear the risk, but at the same time, we will do profit sharing with them so that they will gain on success base instead of like getting a fixed fee no matter what the project turns out to be. So I think that is quite an interesting way to being able to innovate, but at the same time not to bear too much cost.
Okay. Well, on the other hand, how about your business sustainability? How would you cope with that?
Well, that is about succession planning as well.
Okay.
And I have 3 children, so I've planned for that. But,
that's a great example. Yes.
Yeah, but sustainability is always a big topic. Mm-hmm. And it's not an easy topic that we can just talk about in just a few words. But we spend a lot of time thinking about how to sustain our business, how to including succession planning, and so I think in the past 20 years, Hong Kong people are more being aware of that issue, and I think it's time for us to put more effort to make sure that our cooperation can keep going on for decades and also centuries.
Right, thank you. How about you, Clara?
Well, I think in the past 20 years, for Hong Kong's fundamental shift, definitely technologies plays an important role. And besides technology, I would think that the product quality, environmental sustainability, knowledge management, knowledge economies, and also our greater or deeper integrations with China is also plays a very important role in the past 20 years in Hong Kong's economy. Take my examples of my companies. Being a long-term traditional companies founded in Hong Kong for over 70 years now, and in a very traditional sectors as metals and commodities, which is not a very sexy topics that people would understand. Being the 4th generation, in the past 20 years, our developments is quite in line with the changes of the Hong Kong's business environment. From traditionally a trading hub or successor Hong Kong trading hubs, we have expanded our business because of many of our customers which are mainly in the manufacturing industries that set up their facilities in China and expand their production areas. We expand our business from only supplying the materials to providing a metal solution to our customers involving manufacturing solutions, manufacturing consultancy. We set up our laboratories testing lab in Hong Kong, and at the moment we have expanded to our business to risk management platform, which we have set up a futures brokerage firm. So kind of like providing a full range of service for supporting the manufacturing industries in Greater China area.
Okay, some background about Clara. She has over 20 years experience in metals and commodities industry. So let me ask you a second question. How would you cope with these changes, or what is a major change have you experienced in the past 20 years for your company?
The major change I would think is that our customers becomes more demanding, so we cannot be lazy. So we have to be very proactive in helping our customers to be competitive in this today's economic environment, especially in the past few years, when many of the manufacturing industries, which are more of the export driven, and they are facing a lot of challenges in the past few years of economic downturn cycles. And in order to help them success, which we depends on their success, and that we have to be creative and very forward-looking of how can we best offer to a traditional manufacturing industry. So this is how we change or how we expand our business from solely distributing the metals, but at the moment we are also supplying the solution, providing the consultancy, and also a full range of solutions for our customers.
So your customers' success means demands.
Yes, exactly, yeah.
Okay, let me move to the two entrepreneurs. Let's just talk about some innovation and creativity. Well, such as how would you balance the two with the investment for your business continuity? Douglas, let me begin with you.
Well, I think the main impact, because I'm in the cultural sector as well as running a retail shop, number of retail shops. So I think the main thing that's really affected us for the last 20 years has been the kind of onslaught of American, well, not American, but international brands actually that's coming into Hong Kong. I remember before 97, Hong Kong, I mean, if you go to the shopping centers, you will see the local brands such as, well, Bossini, Giordano, and mainly local brands. But gradually, we've had the opening up of the market in China, and people, well, a lot of international companies seeing Hong Kong as a sort of beachhead to establish their first shops, their first change stores before going to China. And as a result, I think local companies, local brands have had to fight with these international players, and losing, of course, and conceding a lot of our spaces to them. And that has been a big issue, I think, big thing that's been happening to the retail sector.
Yes,
and you only have to go to the shopping malls of today, and then you would see all the shops, actually, all the brands that exist anywhere in the world, really. I mean, our shopping malls are pretty homogenized.
Yeah. Yes, Sue?
I'm sorry for being
okay.
pessimistic about that.
Not at all.
Yeah, so I guess for us, what we see is, and this is not just a Hong Kong thing, but I think globally, it's just the level of connectedness that is continuing to amplify. Right? If you consider how things were before, it changes everything from how we create things, how we develop things, because we are all networked in more and more ways. We know that basically in the future we will be even more hyper-connected with each other. What does that mean? It means that when we do business, we have to be more transparent, for instance, right? When we basically develop, we have to make use of more outside resources. When we have to innovate, we can't rely on ourselves. We can't do it internally. We have to, in our business, we have to go to open source technologies and basically use stuff that was developed outside, or leverage APIs or SDKs from third parties. And as we look at the future, which is even more connected, that means information flows ever faster, right? Obviously, internet has taken its part, and what has it done? It's made us all more connected than ever before. It means that even someone who is maybe not as influential can suddenly have an impact. As a result, it also allows for many startups to grow and many small ideas to mushroom and explode in both good and bad ways. And that's very impactful for not just our business, but generally. But because we're in the thick of it, we have to basically see how can we best take advantage of the network effect. Whether it is in marketing, whether it is in product distribution, right, or whether it is just in product development.
Douglas, what's your insight?
Well, I don't really have a solution, but for myself, as a local company, a privately owned company with very little resource as such, what we try to do is actually to ask ourselves, what can we do as a local brand that overseas brands cannot do? And we came up with this answer of being really very emphasizing the fact that we are from Hong Kong.
Right.
So ever since this phenomenon of the international brands coming to Hong Kong, what we've really been doing is to emphasize the fact that we are a Hong Kong brand and make us proud. We want to reach out to our customers, especially those from Hong Kong, and we want to be able to help them to bolster their local identity. So this has been something that sort of worked for us, for a company of our scale. Of course, it can't work for everybody, but this is, I think, this is how we use this sort of challenge to sort of better ourselves as well.
Yeah, I think yes, there's something to say that.
So I think one example, for instance, if you look online, what's really worked well is when you talk about sort of cultural exports, like in your business, then because we're also hyper-connected and everything's so relatively easy in reach, you can connect to the audiences around the world. So maybe it was a niche product in Hong Kong, so it can never be really that big. But if you collect all the niches around the world, right, actually it might become a million-user audience, right? Particularly when you look at e-commerce first generation, a lot of them basically exported, whether it was Indian products to Indian diaspora or Chinese products to Chinese diaspora, right? I mean, those were I mean, there's more Chinese people living overseas than there are people in France, right? So as a market itself, it is already sizable, and they're also very affluent. So if you can take advantage of the network effect and basically use the network intelligence to reach out to them, then you can have a very large market. And that's where the online players can go all over the world. But if we continue to stay local and look at our sort of, let's say, borders, because that's how we always used to do it, then we will slowly get crushed because we don't have a way of reaching them out when they can always come in.
Unfortunately, I think for a lot of local retailers, online retailers in Hong Kong, we actually face a sort of disadvantage against the big players like Amazon or Net-a-Porter, the rest of the world, because Hong Kong is a free port. Things can be shipped to Hong Kong free of tax, so you can order things and they will arrive overnight. Whereas if people, say from New York, try to buy a gift from GOD and want to give it to their friends in San Francisco, our parcel sent from Hong Kong will be stuck at the border, will be held at the border, and the friend at San Francisco will have to go to the customs office, pay for the tax, and then, I mean, it's pretty embarrassing, right? Which is why I think the system is actually stacked against us. The only way that we can go around that is to actually import things into America and warehouse it there, and of course pay tax first. And companies like ours, we simply don't have the resources or the scale to be able to handle that kind of a situation.
Okay, great. Now I would like to move on to look into the future economic development, having new technologies, new policies in front. Well, less on the policies, all right? Okay, so technology. Well, let's look at how we can play. We always stress Belt and Road Initiative that we should come up and be the super connector. Okay, how would you cope with that? Let's say Clara.
Let's look at Hong Kong's. Well, I would look at Hong Kong's success in the past is that what I think is the Hong Kong spirit, like 狮子山精神, is determinations, persistence, and we are very brave to try new things, and we are very adaptive to new environments and new markets. Whenever there's business opportunities, I think most of the Hong Kong peoples will go to look for. And with this Belt and Road initiatives, definitely it's opened up a bigger market opportunities for Hong Kong community. And with carry on our spirits, our core values, I think that we will with this big opportunities that we will find our ways to how to ride on our expertise, our professional areas, our core values to expand in these locations. This is what I believe that it is a positive move for the Hong Kong community. Yeah.
I like that Lion Rock spirit. Annie, what about your industry?
I think there's one hurdle that Hong Kong people need to overcome, is that we are quite in our comfort zone right now, and we are happy with our life, and of course not talking about political issues, but we are happy with our lifestyle. We just want to stay in our comfort zone, and there's no new demand or no new way of living. So, and that is one of the reasons why Hong Kong is so behind, that we don't have the demand, and of course then we don't have the supply to drive up, to uplift the technology or the new way of living in Hong Kong. So I think there is one hurdle for us to overcome, is that people in Hong Kong needs to change. And there's a big reluctance, a very strong reluctance that we don't want to change right now. But if we are willing to change, and if we are willing to accept new technologies and like go online shopping, like people in China pay for their taxi fare through WeChat or other channels, but nobody use cash. But Hong Kong people, majority are still using cash. Those kind of things that if we are willing to change, and that will be able to make us be more up to date and not so behind. And if we can overcome that, and I think the Belt and Road Initiative, of course, it will bring us a lot of opportunities.
Fantastic. Well, Douglas, being a successful local brand sort of, if I don't. What is your perspective on the growth of the Hong Kong in the future?
Well, I'm very optimistic that Hong Kong will have our golden years ahead of us. Of course, it really depends on forthcoming administrations what they'll be doing. But I think I just see Hong Kong as being so well positioned geographically, bang in the middle of Asia, to play this role as the cultural hub. I think Hong Kong, because of our history, our rule of law, freedom of expression, our international community, all these sort of things have really been our advantages. And I think I would wish for future governments to really grab this title, the cultural hub. It's the place where there would be movie festivals, fashion shows, sporting events. I mean, it's already beginning to happen with success. Art Basel has really changed Hong Kong. And I think I'm really a proponent of Hong Kong going more towards that direction, because it really does not contravene what Beijing does for politics, and maybe Shanghai one day being the financial center. Hong Kong as being the cultural hub will really complement all these existing cities and networks. So I mean, if Ms. Carrie Lam's here, this is what I would really try to remind her. Please come.
We wish the Chief Executive Elect is here. Yeah. What about you? What do you think? Well, what can be done to improve our economic growth?
Well, I mean, I think Hong Kong has always been sort of at the center of kind of being sort of a trading hub, right, and connecting the world. I think in that sense, Hong Kong should continue doing that. But I think one of the areas that Hong Kong can really improve on, if you are talking about that, is embrace further diversity, right? So by diversity, I don't mean, necessarily people from overseas or whichever, although that's a part of it, but just general diversity in everything, whether it's arts, people, culture. And as a result, that means embracing the international culture and the international language. So in this case, it's Chinese. It's English. Chinese is important, of course. But my point being is that, if you talk about what's going to influence the world, of course it's going to be China, right? In a big way. But China's influence in the world isn't going to be because the rest of the world is going to speak Chinese.
Right.
It's because most of the Chinese will speak good English, right?
Mm.
And what advantage does Hong Kong have in that environment? Where is Hong Kong going to lead, right? And Hong Kong has this advantage today, right, in terms of the people who live here, as you talk about freedom of law, the technology, everything, of course, language and cultural skills, right? People prefer to do business in Hong Kong and to connect to Hong Kong to the rest of the world. But we have to continue that, whether this is with education, further work, and so on. And when you talk about innovation, innovation doesn't come from, incumbents. It never does, right? Even if you go to the Valley, which major technology company emerged from a Californian, if you were to take that as a country, right? They all come from other places, whether they're from Russia, from South Africa, it doesn't really matter, right? So we need to do the same in Hong Kong. When you think about Hong Kong's first generation of, change makers and wealth, they weren't really from Hong Kong. Actually, who is from Hong Kong, right?
Yes.
Just like America.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, in that case, how would innovation and creativity, can help us build profits? I would like to Clara to share this with us. Clara? Sorry. Clara, sorry.
To me, innovations and creativities are cultures. It's a company cultures. I can't see a companies that can continue the business without any innovations or creativities. So this is how the business or how the companies could survive in different types of situations. So for us, is we innovate on our business model, on our materials that we supply to our customers, and we keep doing this, and also controlling the cost is also a very is the very usual ways of managing the business anyway. So for us, we believe that this is the company cultures that every company should have to keep innovating and to be creative in order to be competitive.
Very good. Annie, you have something to say?
Yes, I totally agree with Clara. And I think innovation and creativity is actually a long-term investment for a company. And as Clara said, if we don't do it, and we will be behind because people around us will keep doing it. So we have to invest, but at the same time, of course, cost control is a very important issue in this situation, because innovation is always costly if you don't control it well. So just now when I mentioned about partnership, it's also a way for us to control the cost for innovation, because just like in our company, if we want to design new products for our customers, and if we work together with the designers rather than hiring the designers to pay them a fixed fee, whether the product will be receptive or not, nobody knows. But if we do a partnership and we do profit sharing, and that is a very cost-effective way to do innovation.
I think it's very important to emphasize the fact that cost and innovation are two opposing things. I think if you have rising costs, I mean, the fact that Hong Kong, prices are just, operating costs are extremely high in Hong Kong, and that really reduces innovation. I think I don't mind admitting that maybe my shop was more innovative 20 years ago when rent wasn't so high, because I can afford to take risks, I can afford to try things out, not knowing if it will succeed. But now that the cost of failure is so high, because I know if this product doesn't sell, I might have to close my shop. Under such circumstances, I'll just have to play safe, you know, and so reducing innovation. Also, I believe that the lack of space, which is also a factor of rising costs, is also hampering the innovation of young people as well, because they just don't have the space to just lay themselves out and experiment and just try different things and just not worry about living costs for a while. I think this is also reducing innovation, creativity.
Yeah, talking about young children, I think when we talk about future in Hong Kong, I think we cannot skip education. Yeah, I think your company has something to do with education also.
Yeah, so I won't go into what we do, but since we don't have time for that, yeah, education is definitely fundamental to this, because the way we teach our children, I mean, we just have to project. It's not hard to imagine 20 years, what will the future look like? It'll be AI, it'll be robots, basically every job that we think we're training our children to do are going to be done by robots, right? So what are the skills that they need to have? They need to have creative, design thinking, and divergent thinking skills. That means they have to be put in uncertain scenarios and be able to do something out of it, which is basically what entrepreneurs have to do, right? You're starting a new market, you're starting a new field, you're being innovative, you're being different. And that's something, and one of the biggest skill sets that are also required to do that is to have perspective and be empathetic, right? All of these are skills we do not teach at school, right? We don't teach our children to feel for others. We don't teach our children to understand others. We teach them to get a good grade and pass it, right? And that there's maybe only one right answer. When you take that path forward and then put them into the workplace, it would be difficult for them to think differently. And also in Hong Kong, I don't know who's a parent here, don't have to say, but I'm a parent of children myself, and we overschedule our children's lives. The wake-up call to us, and practically one of the reasons why I ended up doing a lot in education is, this was many years ago. My son, I don't know, he was 6 or 7. He finished all his work, came into my bedroom. It was like 11 o'clock. I had a late night, so I slept in. And he's like, "Oh, Daddy, I have nothing to do. What do I do?" Right. This is a kid at 7 years old. I was shocked, right? And that was my wake-up call. Because as a child, I remember being bored and always trying to figure something out to do. But it turns out that somehow we've, in our intention to do the best for our children, we're actually making them do, we're basically scheduling their life and controlling them. And then they actually don't know how to think for themselves. So that's become a personal mission of mine, but I think it's also very fundamental to Hong Kong. And I want to close with maybe just an example here. You take an example like Finland, which is the opposite of Hong Kong. Hong Kong, if you think about its wealth and its creation came from the outside, right? From people who immigrated to Hong Kong, right? Finland doesn't have that problem because it's really cold and it's terrible weather. So people don't want to move to Finland at all. However, they were in trouble. So they reformed the education system completely. And now they only have one standardized exam for the entire school year. Kids don't start school until 7, right? And it's basically all play. And now if you think about where's Finland today with a population that's almost half the size of Hong Kong. It is basically one of the most innovative places in the world, right, with a fraction of the population that exists in Hong Kong. And so I think it's possible when you reform the education system to be play-centered, then I think you can grow Hong Kong in the same way. Anyway, that's my thing.
So that's why the
Peace.
Nokia cell phone was so successful, right? Well, being the mommy of 3 children, I'll let you comment on this.
Right. My elder daughter is now 20, so I pretty much passed the pain. And my youngest is now 14, but I know that the education system in Hong Kong is very tough, and as a matter of fact, I think it's quite suffering for parents. So I really hope that while Mrs. Lam is here, I hope that the education system can be reformed.
Okay, all right, okay. Well, my instruction is when our CEO-elect, Mrs. Lam, comes in, I have to end this panel, okay? So, ladies and gentlemen, a big hand for the panelists, please. Thank you.
Sorry, I'm going to have to hijack you a bit, Doctor, because I think actually I'm more interested also in the education system once the students graduate. I think to give the hope for the children of the future is also very important. I think we have a great school system, but I think the opportunities are often very lacking after they graduate. So hopefully we'll get a sense of vision from the next administration to the future children so that they have a sense of hope, and hopefully Hong Kong will be a lot more peaceful then. Sorry, thank you.
Thank you very much indeed.
Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause. Thank you.